I'm James Ezimoha. Welcome to African News, where we bring you the latest updates from across the African continent. Let's see your headlines. Hundreds of Muslims in Bukavu gathered to celebrate the end of Ramadan despite insecurities in eastern Congo. Zimbabwe's capital goes quiet as war veterans call for protests to demand president's resignation. Sudan's army chief rules out future deals with the paramilitary rapid support forces. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, where streets were unusually quiet on Monday as war veterans backing Zimbabwe's vice president called for protests to demand President Emmerson Mnangagwa's resignation. The veterans accuse him of corruption, economic failure, and plotting to extend his rule beyond 2028.
A tense calm gripped Zimbabwe's capital on Monday as residents stayed indoors following calls for protests by war veterans. It's over a failing economy and corruption allegations against President Emmerson Mnangagwa, leading to demands for his resignation. The president, who took office after leading the 2017 military takeover that ousted longtime ruler Robert Mugabe, has been consolidating power in recent days. Last week, he dismissed a senior general, a move analysts see as an attempt to tighten his grip amid fears of a coup. Despite the protest call, demonstrations failed to gain traction. Residents say fear kept people away.
It won't be a successful demonstration. Like I'm saying, there is no trust. It won't be a successful demo. Because people, they are just at home for their protection of their livelihood and their life.
Mnangagwa denies accusations that he's planning to extend his rule beyond 2028. But with rising discontent in his party and war veterans turning against him, analysts say his grip on power is weakening.
In West Africa, a Nigerian religious leader is using faith to bridge religious divides, allowing Muslims and Christians to worship together in his Lagos temple. His Interfaith ministry aims to promote unity in a country often shaken by religious violence.
Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, has long been divided along religious lines. The north is predominantly Muslim, while the south is largely Christian. However, at God the Creator of the World Interfaith Ministry in Lagos, believers from both faiths pray and sing together, guided by Prophet Bolaji Oshiba. He founded the ministry in 2010 to create a space where religious differences take a backseat to unity. He says true peace can only come when Nigerians see beyond religious differences.
Nigerian, our languages, it's more than 200. And the religion is different type. And God wants to perfect this nation. So all he has to do is to open the eyes of people to see that he is one and his religion is one. So without coming together, there is no peace.
Some worshippers say the temple has helped them see religion differently.
The way they accommodated me, the love they showed me, even as Muslims that were here, because I met some Muslims here too, and with the love they showed, I was like, these Muslims are even different from the one outside.
There is no God of Christian, there is no God of Muslim. It's the only one God we are worshiping. It's just the way we worship that God. That's the difference, this thing. And we have the understanding here.
When I come across this ministry, the teachings was so unique. It's one of its kind. It's what I also believe and what I teach also. Oneness of God.
With Muslims marking Eid al-Fitr and Christians preparing for Easter, Oshiba believes there's no better time to promote religious unity. He says his mission is to remind Nigerians that they are one people, regardless of their faith.
In Sudan, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has ruled out any future deal with the paramilitary rapid support forces. His remarks come as the military claims key victories, including taking a major market in Omdurman used by RSF fighters. The army also says it now controls most of Khartoum. The conflict, now in its second year, has forced over 12 million people from their homes and pushed millions to the brink of famine. Reports estimate tens of thousands have died, with Khartoum suffering some of the worst violence.
The atrocities committed against our people and the bitterness that these criminals have inflicted on people, their images, sounds and renewed wounds give us no options in settling with these criminals and their supporters. I say to them in the voice of the displaced and exiled people, whose money has been plundered, the besieged people, the bereaved mothers, the orphaned children and the martyrs, that we will not forgive, we will not compromise, we will not negotiate, and we will not break our covenant with the martyrs. The path to peace and ending the war is still open. The suffering of our people in the areas controlled by the terrorist militia, their siege, destruction and killing, especially in Al-Fashir, and the necessity of spreading peace and reassurance throughout the country, all of this is possible and the way is clear, which is for the rebel militia to lay down its weapons or the wheel will turn against the oppressor.
Still in Sudan, Muslims observed Eid al-Fitr in war-ravaged Omdurman and Port Sudan, where many have sought refuge. As prayers mixed with sorrow, worshippers called for peace and the reunification of families torn apart by war.
Eid al-Fitr celebrations in Sudan was overshadowed by war. In Omdurman, bullet-scarred mosques stood as reminders of months of intense fighting, while in Port Sudan, displaced families prayed for an end to their suffering. The country remains deeply divided as the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces have been locked in a brutal 2-year conflict. As the army declares victory in Khartoum, RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo vows to return stronger. Meanwhile, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has ruled out reconciliation, promising to crush the RSF. As the conflict rages on, religious leaders say grief and destruction filled this year's Eid.
This Eid comes to us in these years while people are filled with sadness for what has happened to them, from killing to the destruction of their homes, to displacement, to mass exodus.
Displaced residents also pray for the reunification of families torn apart by war.
God willing, God will unite us all after the long journey of displacement, starting our displacement to Sennar, and from there to Al-Qadarif, and again to Khartoum, from Khartoum to Port Sudan. We hope that God will unite us all, unite us with all those absent outside Sudan and inside Sudan.
For many Sudanese, this Eid was not a time of celebration, but of longing for peace, for home, and for families to be whole again.
In eastern Congo, hundreds of Muslims gathered in a stadium in Bukavu to mark the end of Ramadan despite ongoing insecurity. Many say the conflict has forced them to alter their religious traditions.
For many Muslims in Bukavu in eastern Congo, this year's Eid al-Fitr was unlike any other. With their town under threat from Rwandan-backed rebel forces, traditional prayers have moved from mosques to safer locations. Led by South Kivu's Islamic community leader, Sheikh Issa Ibrahim Magala, Sunday's prayers were a rare moment of unity. He says insecurity has forced Muslims to pray at home and adjust prayer schedules.
In reality, we Muslims have prayed mostly at home, especially evening prayers. But for daytime prayers, we did them at the mosque. We adopted this attitude because of the security situation in our country. We also took this opportunity to invoke God to grant us peace and security, as it should be. Because if the country has peace and security, we Muslims and Congolese will have the freedom to carry out our daily activities, as well as our religious practices, as usual.
For many families, even finding food for Ramadan was a struggle.
In reality, it was difficult, but by God's grace, we made efforts to find futari, tea, and other things, always by God's grace. But today, things went well, inshallah.
Despite the hardships, Bukavu's Muslims remain resilient. They say their faith gives them strength to endure the crisis, as they continue to pray for peace and stability in the region.
In Guinea, mixed reactions have followed the pardon of former military leader Musa Dadis Camara in the capital of Conakry. The controversial pardon, granted for health reasons, is being viewed by some as a crucial step towards national reconciliation.
Guinea's junta leader Mamadi Doumbouya has granted a pardon to former military ruler Musa Dadis Camara, citing health concerns. The decision, announced on state television last week, comes months after Camara was convicted of crimes against humanity for his involvement in the 2009 stadium massacre. The leader also announced plans for compensation to the victims. The payout, which could total over $20 million, has sparked both support and debate in a nation still grappling with its political past.
The victims were satisfied with the conviction, but there is a pardon because he is a former president, a head of state, a former head of state. Especially because of his health condition, I think President Doumbouya and his advisors analysed it well. I think this is something that is part of national reconciliation.
Since we only want peace in the country, pardoning Dadis Camara is a very good thing. It's an act that I really appreciated. It's a good thing, and if they could also pardon the others who are there, truly, that would make us even happier.
While the pardon has generated mixed reactions, many see it as a necessary step toward moving beyond Guinea's painful past. However, others remain cautious about the long-term implications for the country's future and political stability.
Well, that's all we have today on African News. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.